Thanks for joining me. Tonight, the women reporting serious side effects from a new generation of contraceptives.
And that's it. Simple.
All the studies internationally and here have indicated that women like them.
Honestly, I wish I never got it.
Doctors should listen to their patients. We don't all make up stuff to get attention.
Bitcoin is suffering a bit from the Kardashian syndrome. Bitcoin's famous for being famous.
And what will happen if the Bitcoin bubble bursts?
Bitcoin futures jumped over 20%.
Yeah, we've seen phenomenal growth over the last 12 months.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day.
Those stories coming up shortly, but first, more than a year after he first resigned from Labor's front bench, Sam Dastyari today announced he's quitting the Senate. It follows relentless questioning over his close links with a billionaire Chinese businessman. The announcement brings to an end a short-lived but high-profile Senate career for the power broker, who says he's always acted with integrity. Already there's talk his vacant Senate seat could be filled by former New South Wales Premier Christina Keneally if she fails to win this weekend's Bennelong by-election.
Everyone here, everyone good to go? So look, I'm going to be making a short statement and I won't be taking any questions.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be making a short statement and I won't be taking any questions.
Today, Sam Dastyari fronted up to give his second resignation speech in a little more than a year. This time, there's no coming back.
Today, after much reflection, I've decided that the best service I can render to the Federal Parliamentary Labor Party is to not return to the Senate in 2018. I have not reached this decision lightly, but in my deliberations I've been guided by my Labor values, which tell me that I should leave if my ongoing presence detracts from the pursuit of Labor's mission. It is evident to me we are at that point, so I will spare the party any further distraction.
Will you cut the cake with me?
Oh, I'd love to, sir.
Please donate. We're raising funds for the bus.
Thank you very much.
Sam Dastyari was a colourful figure among the dark blue suits of federal parliament.
Are you being investigated by both the ACCC and ASIC?
But behind his bluster was a Labor factional warrior who knew how to fill the party coffers. Political donors flocked to Sam Dastyari's New South Wales Labor Party, particularly this Chinese billionaire, Huang Zhangmo. It was an association that brought the New South Wales senator's runaway career to a crashing halt. How much of it was his decision? Because yesterday your colleagues, Catherine King, Linda Burney, said that he had to consider his position, and then a Labor elder statesman, Kim Beazley, said he was a distraction, a word Sam Dastyari dropped in his presser this morning. So how coordinated was the push?
What I said on Friday unequivocally in answer to similar questions is, in my opinion, Senator Dastyari's career was going nowhere fast. I think what my colleagues said was just a statement of the obvious that Senator Dastyari would be...
But was it also a signal?
Sorry, if I can finish your first question. I think it was a statement of the obvious, to be honest, that he was considering his position, and that's what he's done.
But was it a signal as well?
I think Senator Dastyari's arrived at this decision. It's a big thing. He's made mistakes of judgment. But he's paid the heaviest of price. His career in federal politics is over. He's resigned. Now, I think that's a tough decision. Now, I think it's the right decision. I think it's the right decision for him, absolutely. In terms of how he got to that decision, I think it's become clear for a number of days, including from my own comments publicly and privately, that his career was going nowhere fast.
Sam Dastyari's problems have arisen because of his relationship with Chinese donors. Is this a problem with an individual or is it a problem within New South Wales Labor?
Oh, I think that there's a challenge with our donation laws in this country. I think that we need electoral reform. I've proposed early this year, following further revelations from the media, that the Labor Party would no longer take foreign donations and donations from these two people who have been mentioned constantly in the media. I don't understand, for example, why the Liberal Party of Australia is still taking money from these people who everyone else says Sam Dastyari shouldn't have engaged with.
But is there a more widespread problem within New South Wales Labor? Because Andrew Wilkie says that basically China has bought the New South Wales Labor Party. So how do you respond to those allegations that there's undue influence within New South Wales Labor?
All right, thank you. As for Andrew Wilkie attacking Labor, complete rubbish. Complete rubbish. But what I did say earlier in answer to your earlier question is I'm concerned, and I think a lot of Australians are concerned with the lack of transparency in donations in Australia.
Ms Keneally, you know Sam Dastyari better than most from when you were Premier and he was State Secretary. Was this sort of relationship he had with donors a pattern of behaviour that you were aware of?
No.
When did you become aware that there was a problem?
The revelations that were in the media recently.
What we're seeing from Labor is a staged, managed resignation of Sam Dastyari so that they can shore up Christina Keneally's chances of getting a spot somewhere in the Senate.
Huang Zhangmo was also a prolific donor to the Conservative side of politics, though Foreign Minister Julie Bishop rejected any comparison.
There is no equivalence between a donation to a political party, which is disclosed on the AEC, and a senator receiving personal funds paid for by a foreign businessman, in exchange for which he changed Labor's foreign policy and he gave counter-surveillance advice. I mean, Sam Dastyari is utterly compromised. There is no equivalence whatsoever.
I leave knowing that I've always honoured my parliamentary oath, I've always acted with integrity, and I remain a loyal, patriotic Australian.
Thousands of Australian women are turning to a new generation of long-acting, reversible contraceptives. They're marketed by the major drug companies as a safe and reliable alternative to the contraceptive pill. But in hundreds of cases, women have reported serious side effects. Most patients would not be aware that the drug companies are also spending tens of thousands of dollars to promote their products to doctors. Sophie Scott and Alison Branley have this exclusive report and a warning it contains some confronting images.
Now, you shouldn't feel this go in, Melissa, because you've had the local anaesthetic now. And that's it. Simple.
With this small injection, Melissa Domingo will be protected from pregnancy for the next 3 years.
I actually fell pregnant on the pill, so I've now got a 16-year-old son.
Have a seat.
Melissa now has a hormone-releasing device the size of a matchstick in her arm. It's called an Implanon, and as her doctor explains, it's one of a new generation of long-acting reversible contraceptives.
Implanon's one of the most reliable, in fact the most reliable contraception that we have. It's said to be 99.95% effective. The good thing about long-acting contraceptions such as the implant is that you don't have to remember anything. It's a set and forget method.
Implanon is made by pharmaceutical company Merck Sharp and Dohme. It works by releasing a hormone called progesterone to prevent ovulation, similar to the mini contraceptive pill. The makers say it provides guides on appropriate use of its products in suitable patients, but some women are now reporting serious side effects from the device.
Well, I was just lethargic all the time. I didn't have the energy to look after my 2-year-old daughter. All I wanted to do was sleep.
Okay. Susie Short was a young mum looking for a safe, reliable contraceptive when her GP suggested Implanon. But what started out as lethargy soon got far worse.
Probably about 2 months after, I started bleeding non-stop. No matter what I did, the bleeding still continued. I know I have to keep going in.
That went on for 7 months. All the while, Susie Short kept going back to her GP, asking to have the implant out.
She finally agreed to take it out after much convincing, but she finally done it.
But she says she's still feeling the effects.
Well, I've been told that what I've got now is possibly come from that. I've now got chronic pelvic pain due to adhesions. All of my abdominal organs are fusing to my abdominal wall. I've been diagnosed as clinically depressed, so I'm on antidepressants every day.
Federal Health Department data shows the government has received more than 1,000 reports of problems with the implant. And it's not just Implanon. There are concerns about another popular device called a Mirena, which is made by corporate giant Bayer.
The response was pretty much I was making it up, that it can't be from the Mirena.
It's an intrauterine device that releases hormones directly into the uterus. Almost 1 million have been used by Australian women.
They told me that it was easy to be removed, and if you didn't like it, then just come back.
Brisbane mother Jane Morgan Harry was in hospital after having a miscarriage when she asked to have her tubes tied. Instead, doctors suggested she have a Mirena.
So day one, severe cramping. The bleeding was bad. I had headaches, sweats, the shakes, nausea continuously, pretty much 24 hours a day. I've started getting anxiety. I've been put on a low dosage of anxiety medication.
Since having the device inserted, Jane now has her period 2 weeks of every month. Jane went back to the hospital and her GP up to 6 times to no avail. And because of complications, she now has to wait more than a year in the public hospital system to have the device removed and have the tubal ligation she originally wanted.
I'm pretty angry because I knew what was happening to begin with. They don't seem to understand you're the person that it's sitting in. I need to have control of my body. I have not been given control of my body.
Federal Health Department data reveals more than 850 reports of side effects. Mirena's makers, Bayer, say millions of women worldwide have used the device, but like any prescription product, Mirena has risks and benefits.
When I was in the hospital being talked to about contraceptive, I was told by my doctor in the hospital that he'd just spent 3 weeks, I think, overseas in America, going to a conference learning all about the Mirena.
There are concerns the medical fraternity is too eager to prescribe the devices because drug companies are spending up big on promotions.
My concern would be that the companies are spending the money on, say, educational events that might not give a complete and accurate picture of either the effectiveness or the safety of those long-acting methods.
A 7:30 analysis of medical disclosures shows where the money is going. In 2015, drug companies spent more than $400,000 on educational events called contraceptive counselling for doctors and nurses. The pharmaceutical companies, which make Implanon and Mirena, gave $35,000 directly to sexual health clinic doctors in 2016 for educational meetings and consultancies. One doctor from Family Planning New South Wales received $12,000 from the makers of Mirena for an overseas educational meeting.
So from the point of view of the companies, they're making these payments because they see a return on the investments.
Dr. Barbara Minces is an epidemiologist who's been studying the impact these kinds of payments have on doctors' behaviour.
There's an increasing body of research that's showing that the more money that a doctor is provided by pharmaceutical companies, the more likely they are to prescribe branded products. The aim of those payments would be to increase the rate of use of those long-acting contraceptives.
Bayer defended its spending on educational events, saying it was important to keep doctors up to date. Family planning groups say sponsorships haven't influenced their advice to patients. So why are the pharmaceutical companies working so hard to promote these devices? It's interesting because some of the companies also make the traditional contraceptive pill as well. Dr. Mincer says she has a theory.
Most of the combined birth control pills have ingredients that have been on the market for a very long time and are off patent. So they're quite cheap to produce, and when it comes to these other methods, a lot of them are still on patent. So the company still has an incentive to market them intensively to clinicians.
Dr. Amber Moore from the Royal Australian College of Gynaecologists says doctors prescribe the devices because they work.
They have huge advantages in terms of low side effect profile. They are incredibly safe in a contraceptive sense against pregnancy. They are 100% reversible, and they provide a great deal of certainty for women in terms of safety against pregnancy, and they're incredibly cost effective. And in fact, after the first few months, most women will in fact end up never going through another packet of pads or tampons because they simply won't need them anymore.
But for some Implanon patients who do get the device removed, it can be devastating, with many Australian women sharing images of scarring and wounds.
I think they are not typical of what we would normally see, and some of those photos are really quite excessive. That is not what we would expect. We know that women like them because all the studies internationally and here have indicated that women like them because they go back and they have another one.
But women like Susie Short and Jane Morgan-Harry say they'll never go back to the products.
Doctors should listen to their patients. We don't all make up stuff to get attention.
Honestly, I wish I never got it. Would have been better off probably just sticking to the pill.
Sophie Scott with that report. Investors in the online currency Bitcoin have been laughing all the way to the bank in recent weeks. The coins, once worth $1,000 each, have skyrocketed in value, now fetching just shy of $20,000. This week, two major Wall Street exchanges opened trading on the coins, adding legitimacy to what has been something of an experiment. But as Andy Park reports, there are fears the Bitcoin bubble will burst, leaving many investors in the lurch.
If you thought Bitcoin was an abstract technology or a niche investment, there's an awful lot of punters clamouring to be involved.
Bitcoin is a bit of suffering a bit from the Kardashian syndrome. It's that Bitcoin's famous for being famous. People want it because other people want it.
Not long ago, Jason Williams' meetups for Bitcoin enthusiasts sometimes failed to even draw a crowd.
We are absolutely seeing the start of mainstream adoption. Like, we really are.
Now, Bitcoin is a magnet for an unlikely breed of investor.
I guess for you, it's the way to make money.
Don't even know how to update my laptop properly. I'm in the human services, so, math is something I sort of failed at. I'm actually really bad with numbers. Yeah.
So are you typical or atypical here tonight as a Bitcoin investor?
I'm very atypical. One, I'm a woman. I think my age as well. Like, I'm a mother and, I'm sort of at the other end of the spectrum. I'm not young millennial tech person or anything.
The online currency is free from the control of any central bank, and it's no secret its value has gone through the roof.
If you'd bought just one Bitcoin this time last year, you would have paid $982. And if you'd held on throughout the year despite three major crashes and sold last week when it crossed the $18,000 mark, you would have made a tidy profit, if you can handle the risk.
Risk that used to be, in Bitcoin's early days, associated with cybercrime.
Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency.
The new legislation that AUSTRAC will administer in relation to the digital currency exchange providers certainly responds to their increasing prevalence and use within the society and within the community. It also responds importantly for Australia in relation to the risks that are faced by money laundering and terrorism financing.
And now it's being embraced by Wall Street, with Bitcoin futures trading opening with the Chicago Options Exchange.
Moving this on to a regulated market, full transparency, oversight from our own internal regulation, that's what we're bringing to the marketplace, and it is answering that demand that we've seen from our customers.
Futures trading is a way to basically lock in a contract and enable someone else to take the risk of price volatility, and that makes it safe for institutional investors. So what we can expect to see is reasonably large amounts, possibly a flood of institutional money into this crypto market.
A flood so dramatic, trading was twice halted to stabilise the price from huge upward surges.
Bitcoin futures jumped over 20% before easing back. The surge may have caused an early outage of the Chicago-based CBOE Global Markets website.
Bitcoin is basically the email.
Two brothers banking that the bubble won't burst are the Winklevoss twins.
Around the world, as long as someone has a data connection.
They pumped $11 million from their settlement with Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg into Bitcoin, making them the first Bitcoin billionaires.
Bitcoin is a fixed supply of 21 million Bitcoin, similar to why you might buy gold and have that in your portfolio as a hedge against currency risk or inflation or disaster insurance.
It's their exchange which is supporting Bitcoin's Wall Street debut.
Good morning, everybody. Yay, what's up?
Closer to home, others are enjoying Bitcoin's growth.
Yeah, we've seen phenomenal growth over the last 12 months. Most Bitcoin exchanges track quite closely to the Bitcoin price. So in terms of trading volumes, we've seen a tenfold increase over the last 12 months, and we've more than doubled our user numbers.
Asher Tan runs Coingasm, an Aussie startup which focuses on getting consumers into owning and trading in the currency.
I think the basic concepts of Bitcoin have different aspects. There's the economic side, there's the technology side, and there's the social side as well, how we use currencies between each other. So lots of education. Coingasm aims to demystify it. The best way is to own a small amount of Bitcoin and use it for yourself, and that usually answers most of the questions people have around Bitcoin.
A lot of the attention this year has been on Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, but in many ways that is actually a sideshow. For the real thing that happened was that we just got a significant proof of concept of a radical new technology that is about to transform a lot of the ways in which we use data and information in our society.
You all can do whatever you want, and I don't care. Okay?
But predictions the bubble will burst remain. The CEO of JP Morgan Chase Bank calls it a fraud.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for, how it trades, why it trades, who trades it. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day. The only value of a Bitcoin is what the other guy will pay for it. And I think, honestly, I think there's a good chance that Bitcoin, a lot of the buyers out there are up there jazzing it up every day so that maybe you'll buy it too.
I don't see this as a bubble. What I see this as a price discovery process that's playing out with a fundamentally new technology. And there'll be gyrations and volatility in this process, but what we're observing here is mostly an adoption process, where as more and more people come in, this drives the price higher.
Can I get a beer and a vodka soda fresh lime, thanks?
For now, actually paying with Bitcoin in the real-world economy remains a novelty.
Is this the first time you've bought a drink with Bitcoin?
No.
So what else can you buy with Bitcoin?
I'd like to be able to buy a lot more. Hey, can I pay with Bitcoin? Thanks.
And even its legion of new fans can't agree on what Bitcoin will do next.
Be really careful with what you want to do with Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies.
Like it'll pop, it'll deflate, but it won't, the bubble, like it won't burst.
Andy Park reporting there. It's almost 50 years since man last walked on the moon. Now, US President Donald Trump has pledged to send astronauts back to the moon as the first step in a manned mission to Mars and beyond. Brad Tucker is an astrophysicist with the Australian National University and has been visiting NASA today. He joined me earlier from Washington, DC. Dr. Brad Tucker, what's the vibe like at NASA today?
So, I mean, it's both exciting and a little bit of, not worrisome isn't the right word, but cautious optimism. And, and the idea is that we've heard these sort of things before. We hear the same things of being innovative and that sort of stuff. So people say, well, let's go to the moon. That sounds innovative. But we have to make sure there's a real plan and a real tangible goal and a real tangible idea of what's accomplished with this, other than saying, hey, let's just try and think about going to the moon.
It's been so long since NASA went to the moon, 1972. Does anyone there have an idea of how soon you could possibly get a mission up and running?
So look, and one of the ideas is this work has already been in progress. So there's the new Orion capsule. So this is kind of the replacement to the space shuttle. The Space Launch System vehicle. So this is the new large rocket. So this is already underway. They've already actually had some test flights of this capsule. So it's not that far-fetched to get to the moon, but there's a lot of work that has to be done. And there's also, we have to be cognizant, there's other groups looking at this. Boeing and themselves and supporting this. SpaceX is looking at this, and also the Russians are also looking about getting to the moon.
Yeah, so how much have entrepreneurs as well, like Elon Musk, had an influence on the US government here? Is there sort of like a new space race where private sector are also getting in, not just governments?
Well, that's right. It's, 10 years ago, it was 80% government, 20% private. industry. Now it's reverse. It's 80% private. You know, just in Adelaide in September at the International Astronautical Congress, Elon Musk said, look, this is almost 2018. Why don't we have a moon base?
So 45 years since the last Apollo 17 mission, which landed on the moon, how different is the technology going to look in the 21st century for this next moon mission?
Well, I have a demo, and it's this. This is my old iPhone 4. This has more power than the Apollo computer. So if we want to put that into perspective, we can do a lot more advanced technologies, we can do a lot more things, the fuel efficiency, and ultimately the rockets and technology that gets us to the moon. The moon isn't the ultimate goal. The moon is a pit stop. The moon is where we stop off for some fuel to get to Mars, because that is really where we want to go. But we use up all of our fuel getting off the Earth. Now, the moon is great because it has no gravity, so it doesn't really take a lot of energy to get off the surface of the moon. That's why people have talked about even a moon space station. So with the ultimate goal of Mars, the moon just makes sense. It's a short 3-day trip, and so it is possible, and the technology is there to allow some really great things for longevity space flights, not just going down to the surface of the moon for a few hours or days, but really setting up a base and spending 6 months at a time there. So it's a completely different world, but we have to make sure it's a tangible world.
Yes, Donald Trump was saying the same sort of thing, that he wants the moon to be the foundation for a future trip at some point down the future to Mars. But what does a foundation on Mars look like? Is it a settlement? Is it a servo where you pick up a Snickers and some petrol, or what?
It might be a little bit of both. We'll see if a Caltex opens up there. You know, it's what it really, the most efficient model is really a moon space station. Earlier and again in September, the U.S. and Russia agreed to work on a lunar space station and share technology and essentially make sure things fit together, because you can really build around the moon and then you can do trips to the moon from that lunar space station. So instead of our space station where we go up to it and come back down, you use the space station as your base, going down to the moon, you do exploratory science, you may even build a moon base. There's lots of different models you can take, and now that we know the moon is rich in hydrogen and oxygen, those are two things that we need for both turning water supplies, but also we can separate that hydrogen and oxygen into fuel supplies for the rocket. So it becomes its own real fuel source and its own support infrastructure, and that makes it a very desirable place to go.
All right, sounds so exciting. Thank you so much, Dr. Brad Tucker.
Anytime.
That's the program for tonight. Thank you for your company. Good night.